Hey, what are your options if an appraisal comes in low on a purchase price, or maybe you want to address a low appraisal at time of purchase agreement? I'm talking about what's called an appraisal gap guarantee. Peter Lindquist, I'm with here, who's a great mortgage broker in the Twin Cities. He's going to help us understand further what is an appraisal gap guarantee, how does it benefit us, and how we might do that in a purchase agreement. My name's Travis Anderson. Let's dive in.
Hey, Travis, what do people mean when they talk about appraisal gap guarantee?
Pretty simple. If we have an appraisal on a home because of a mortgage, we need the appraisal to come in at the purchase price. And so an appraisal gap allows the appraisal to come in below the purchase price for some determined number. Maybe it's a $20,000 gap or a $50,000 gap. And so the appraisal gap allows for the appraisal to come in below the purchase price. It's a really great term in a purchase agreement.
And so I can see why a seller would want it, but why would a buyer want it? So aren't they then buying a house that's worth $20,000 less than, what the appraisal says? Why would they want it?
Yeah, well, if you're competing, it's something that you might look at. So I think for a buyer who isn't competing, it's something we generally aren't discussing. But if we are in a competitive market condition and we're in a competitive offer situation, well, we're trying to figure out not only what is our highest number, we also have to figure out what is our best offer. And this is just a term that might come up when we're determining how to make it the best offer we can write. So, Peter, one thing that I run into with my clients is if we are asking for an appraisal gap coverage, they have to have the money, right? But I know that there's some other scenarios. But so I guess my question is, how can a buyer, cover that difference?
There's really two ways. The way that most buyers think of it and the way that most lenders and realtors explain it is you offer a $20,000 appraisal gap guarantee. So if the house appraises as much as $20,000 lower, you need to pay an additional $20,000. That's the way it is typically explained. But I'm going to show you a way that if you've got 10% down or more, you can actually get essentially a free appraisal gap guarantee. You can offer it to the seller without having to come up with extra money.
So it's like I can offer this thing in the purchase agreement. You're saying, let's just use $20,000 as an example. I can offer this $20,000 appraisal gap in the purchase agreement, and you're saying I don't actually have to have the $20,000 extra cash. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what's absolutely crazy about this. And so the buyers that know it have a secret weapon, because whenever they make an offer, if they want to do an appraisal gap guarantee, they can do that knowing that they're not on the hook for an additional $20,000. So let me walk you through this. First of all, it's important for us to understand this point, and that is cash to close. So that's how much money you need in order to buy the house. The way I define cash to close is this, and I want to see if you agree with me. It is the purchase price plus the closing costs minus the loan amount. So do we agree that the amount of money you need is the price of the home plus the closing costs minus the loan amount?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And where in that formula is appraised value? It's not. Appraised value is not included in that value, and yet we get stuck on that. So people assume that if the house appraises low, that necessarily means you owe more money because they don't understand this formula. When it's a low down payment, that's true. If you've got 3% down and the house appraises $20,000 low, you're going to need that. But when you've got a higher down payment, just want to show you, you don't necessarily need to come up with that. $400,000 purchase price, and let's say you have 50% down. It's a $200,000 loan amount. In this scenario, if the house appraises $20,000 low, so it appraises at $380,000, the lender doesn't have to change the loan amount. We've got a $200,000 loan, house appraised for $380,000. We don't care whether it appraises to $380 or $400. The formula now stays exactly the same. There is exactly no difference to you at closing. The power of that is if you have a large down payment and you're in a competitive offer situation And if you don't care what the appraised value comes in at, pretty easily you can say I've 5% of the purchase price. So 400,000, if the house appraises 5% off of that, as low as 380,000, I don't care as a buyer. I'll complete the transaction. And the listing agent might say, well, you better be ready to come up with $20,000 more. And you can just say, yeah, whatever, because my lender knows he doesn't care. It's going to be the same cash to close if that appraisal comes in low in that particular scenario. It's like a free appraisal gap guarantee when you have a large down payment. When we talk about large down payment, I'm really saying probably 25% down or more. When you've got 10% down or more, you've got a 5% appraisal gap guarantee in almost all cases, but there may be some cost attached to it. And that's something I'm not going to go into all of that, but you've got an appraisal gap guarantee that you can offer the seller without having to come up with a lot more money. It might require a little more money. It is certainly not $20,000, and it makes you stand out as a buyer without having to have an extra $20,000 in your bank account that you're going to use in that transaction. So the pure magic of the math that I'm telling you here is you are very much empowered as a buyer. If you've got 10% down or more, you can be making offers with an appraisal gap guarantee of 5% of the purchase price. You know what? You're blowing away the competition and you're really not risking anything. Sometimes you're risking a little, but not much at all.
Practically speaking, we've used this, right? You and I have used this. We've used it as sellers as well. And so I've had appraisals come in low when I'm working with a seller. Let's say it's $20,000, like you're saying, in a $400,000 home. And with your guidance, I call you and say, hey, what might this look like if you were working with the buyer? Is there an appraisal gap that we can, usually ask for? And we'll take that information. We'll go back to the other realtor and say, hey, how about my seller, instead of lowering the price, how about they cover this appraisal gap coverage for your client? And we've negotiated that in on the sell side. We've negotiated it on the buy side. I think it's important to understand that we may be paying a little bit more for a home in these instances, but like what you said, if the market's competitive and it's, swinging upward or what have you, it might just be worth doing that. Sometimes in certain markets in like 2021, 2022, we saw a lot of it. We're not seeing as much of it now, but we're still competing. So it's a really good strategy for us as realtors and consumers, buyers, to put their offer like in a little bit better position to where now they're competing a lot better for that home. And maybe that's the term that allows them to get the house.
I think the main thing I just want to emphasize, if you've got 10% down or more and you're out making offers on the market and you're frustrated, you are losing out if you don't know this way to come up with a free appraisal gap guarantee. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm glad to talk you through it specifically to your situation to see how that might work.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate your time.